Every life has a story, and every story is worth sharing. Your story, my story, and our story speak of victory and defeat, joy and sorrow, resilience and vulnerability. They are not just our story, they are Christ's story in us. They are Kingdom Stories from Down Under.
Well, last week we heard Jen's story. What an amazing story of courage, and she's come through so much. I'm sure you wanted to hear Chris's story as well. Well, Chris is Jen's husband, and if you haven't watched the last episode, Jen Deaman's story, I invite you to watch that first before you come to hear Chris's story tonight. Chris is a West Australian man who loves the Lord. He leads a motorcycle group, a lot of Harleys, band of brothers, and he is part of our church now, which is even more beautiful, and it's a privilege for us to have him here at Kingdom Stories from Down Under. So without further ado, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So last week we had your wife.
You did.
And we just couldn't wait to hear your part of the story. Not that her part wasn't fantastic. I don't think yours is as dramatic. She had it challenging, but yours is different in many ways. Yet your roads have intersected and have joined forces.
They have, yeah. And she's the better half, by the way, of the family.
Always. We know how to do that. Well, they say behind every great man is a wonderful woman.
It's true.
And usually it's not your mum. So,
exactly right, yeah.
Where did it start for you? So you're West Australian?
Originally, I came from New South Wales. Sort of
Australian.
Into sort of a middle class, suburbia sort of person that's sort of growing up. My father was they had me very late in life, in well into their 40s.
Just outside Sydney?
Just outside Sydney, western suburbs of Sydney.
Okay.
Around Parramatta, probably heard it.
Yeah.
Or Parramatta, Dundas, this, that and the other. Sort of grew up there as sort of a suburban boy.
Yes.
Happy growing up. Parents weren't close to each other, but they were good parents in that sense. They provided.
Yeah.
Dad was an ex-World War II veteran and he worked for a newspaper. He was a photo engraver, which became, I think, redundant after a certain amount of time. It was all done.
What was he doing?
It was photo etching. What they do in that days, they made newspapers. They would get the photo and they would have to carve out that figure. They would carve it out. And then it would be pressed to make it, so you have to get it right. He was very good at art, so he could do that.
And that was done by hand?
They were all done by hand. Yeah.
Wow.
You get a photo and have to, but now it's all lithograph stuff. But no, he was a good man. He's brought up in the Salvation Army, so I've never knew him to swear or smoke or drink or.
Wow, very disciplined.
But when he went quiet, when Dad went quiet, you knew that just get out of the way. He's processing stuff. He's angry. We've done something wrong as kids, as you do. Dad's gone quiet. We better just behave ourselves. And a lovely father. Mother was a nurse, mainly convalescent. Not really close with Mum. For all of us as kids, there's my brother, got an older brother. I was the baby of the family.
Sure.
Basically.
How many?
There's 4 of us all together. 2 sisters, a brother, and myself.
Okay, youngest.
And he was the youngest one. Yeah, he was the youngest one. And got away with a certain amount, this, that, and the other. But no, it was great growing up. You know, we travelled a fair bit. We'd get out different things. We interacted with our cousins and aunties and all that sort of
So
thing.
you had family nearby?
Yeah.
From Mum's side or from Dad's side?
From both sides. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Both sides, yeah. So just enjoyed, going to a Catholic school. I don't know if it would be my choice, but somehow they put me in a Catholic school. So
that wasn't cheap.
I don't think so. No. That sort of education wasn't, but they did. They invested for my brother, at least my brother and myself anyway. He was 3 years older, so by the time I go to that, they go, "I hope you're not like your brother, are you?" Because he caused grief for them.
Did he?
So I got a bad name from my brother. Thanks a lot, Tony.
Yeah.
But he's born again Christian too, my brother now, and my older sisters too, Christian. Still
One to go.
One to go.
Hallelujah. And Sydney?
Sydney, yes.
Beautiful town.
Western suburbs of Sydney, from what I remember back then, it was great. A
lot of walks.
And the street is one of those days where everybody looked out for each other.
Yeah.
Those days, you looked out. didn't have half the problems that you had now. So that you hear about, you wouldn't do it after those things. I mean, you could have a game of cricket in the main street and if somebody yell out, "Car coming," just get off the street.
Every half an hour.
Back out on the road.
It wasn't every 30 seconds, it was once
No,
an hour.
yell out and you get a car coming. We'd have billy cart races from up the top, probably come off, fall over, crash and get back up again, get the dust off you.
Nice.
But no, I think they were good years. And so Dad ended up, he was fortunate enough to get because land was cheap over there. He said it was 150 pounds. This was before 1966 when Australia was pound shillings a pence then.
Yep.
And he bought this place down the south coast, away from everywhere in Jarvis Bay. On the south coast, beautiful part. There, only of course his brother, my uncle, had said that we must go down there and get it. So it was just a retreat for weekenders. He built it, put a tent on it, and then he'd get a bit of old iron, whatever he can get. And he was a very good builder.
Yes.
Those sort of generation could do anything when they came through the Depression years. Mum wasn't really the person. She was more the home sort of version. Wasn't in there going and roughing things. She sort of spider, she'd run sort of thing. Whereas there you're dealing with, it's almost tiger country down there. It's like snakes and you name it. We were close to the beach and there's plenty of fishing. And as a kid growing up, I enjoyed it. And Dad bought us an old motorcycle and we would bash around the bush and down the roads. In those days, no one really cared. Fall off and a bit of fun. And
that's how you discovered your love for motorbikes?
Yeah, of course he used to race with them and stuff like that, so I got it. Which helped me to go on to get an education in that. I got an apprenticeship. I sort of learned. I was one of those kids that pulled things apart.
Nice.
I could get mum's clock and pull it apart. How's it work?
Yeah.
I want to know how things work. I want to know that. I still do. And it must have been in the DNA of somebody that's the technical wants to pull. So, who's better at this? I don't know, Mum. I don't know. It's guilty. And trying to put all the bits back in there. Never worked.
Did you have tools?
Oh, I found stuff. I grabbed whatever I could. But eventually, when I did my apprenticeship, it was natural to get in there and learn, do the hands-on. And so he sort of did it.
So you did a mechanical apprenticeship, motorbike mechanic?
Yeah, well, in those days, there was no such thing. They didn't have, back when I did it back in the 70s, they didn't have a motorcycle course per se, so they put us all under automotive engineering, so you do cars. So you might have had trucks, marine, and all in the same, all in the one. So the guys talking about cars, and he said, "Well, I'm working on trucks all day." I go, "Well, I'm working on motorcycles." So just be all. But anyway, I'm glad because it helped me when I was working on cars. I myself. So as I came out of the apprenticeship, in those days I got whether it's a bad thing, at the time I just got in with some people. We used to go out to the beaches because I had a motorcycle to get out to Manly Beach. Got a surfboard and I'd leave it out at the shop. They'd go, "That's okay, it's out the back there," and I'd ride the bike and just go out with friends. Go surfing. But introduced to marijuana and hash, to drugs, not heavy drugs, but enough to sort of get into those circles. So from about the age of 17, I'd been dealing with those circles of drugs. LSD, very strong, hallucinating drugs. It was pretty. I was recreational, if you want to call it that way.
Yes.
I was functional. I wouldn't do sort of things at work. It was a weekend sort of thing, but I still couldn't do it. Even though I'd been brought up in a Catholic school, I always felt there was a God. I knew there was a God. And
what as a fear? As a handbrake? As
a fear, or as somebody help me, like a rabbit's foot, someone would, a lucky charm, Jesus, I'm in a bad way,
help me,
and he did, and that'd be it once, looking back, and I heard, he had so much grace and love for me then. But it was times going on, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and you're growing up in an era where, I'm still at.
This is late 70s or the 80s? This
would be mid 70s, getting on to 80s, and ended up. I had the travel bug, and it was about half a dozen of us. So let's go to Europe.
Oh.
Yeah, let's do this. So we sort of saved and put our.
Bought a combi van?
You can get plenty of them over there, but we went over by boat. We went over by ship. It took about 6 weeks. It was like a floating hotel,
Oh, you could still go? From Sydney?
We went Sydney, Melbourne.
Yeah.
But I had some drugs on me. I had some marijuana in one of my pockets, and customs said, "Come here." And I didn't take that jacket that day.
Yes.
I didn't have that jacket. I put another one on. Otherwise, I would have said, "You're not going anywhere, Sonny Jim."
Oh.
So, it's just marijuana, but it's enough to get you arrested, enough to get you in trouble. Because and when they check you, they really check you over. That's everything, you know.
So you went through the Great Australian Bight.
No, we went from there. Melbourne went across to Wellington in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And then from there to Tahiti, and then through the Panama Canal. Quite amazing.
Oh, the other way across the
Yeah, we went through Panama because at that time the Suez Canal had been closed. They had a war, because they had a 6-day war with Israel.
Oh yeah, with Israel.
And he blocked it. Would have loved to have gone through there. But
So you went through the Americas.
Went through South America. We
Bahamas.
stayed in Curacao and all that.
Did you stop anywhere?
We did. We stopped in South America in there. They all drive on the opposite side of the road over there. Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And then all the way to England or to Spain?
We went on to Portugal.
Portugal.
And then from there, when we went on to, we docked in England. It was Southampton.
And wasn't that extremely expensive back then?
It wasn't extremely. We'd saved up, and it was just great. We went over with a Chandler's line, which I think Onassis is a Greek airline, Greek line at the time that did that. Most of the ships that were liners were Greek. So you had a Greek crew and stuff like that. But,
lots of food, all inclusive.
All inclusive. But sure, we shared with probably another 3 or 4 in a cabin, so if someone snored, that was it.
Yeah.
But it's a different sort of life on there. It is a different life. It's just a different life there. But it was a great experience and met a lot of good people. So yeah, stayed in London, ended up working in my trade for a while, but it's quite amazing that at that time you could get just as much money doing labouring work. So I got a job with a dairy where all the trucks come in with bringing the milk in, and you made sure those trucks were clean, they had to be right, spotless. And they'd offload yogurt too and cheese, all the stuff that really has to go. So you bring all this home and we'd be just batching it home. So it was just great,
And did you do Europe? Did you travel?
We did Europe. We ended up, I lost a few of my other friends that we went over, they went off early to different plants. I stayed back. So I got down to stay with a couple of English people that knew how to speak French and a little bit of Latin, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Didn't think anybody spoke Latin other than sort of old priests, but we took off over to France and we worked in France, and amazing new culture.
Yeah.
I'm only 20 at this age by this time. And did France. We picked grapes and in some of the amazing parts of France. So the countryside, beautiful. Yeah. And then we left there, went through Switzerland, and then we happened to hitchhiking most of the time, or using cheap transport trains. We happened to get onto a bus that was going back. He was going back to Italy, but we picked him up. He picked us up in Switzerland. He just needed some company. Yeah. This is a big 54-seater with a toilet up the back, and he could speak many languages, obviously. Yeah. So he just wanted to talk to us. So he's a great guy. He said, "I'll take you all the way to Venice, just outside Venice." Nice. And so we to talk to him, just keep him awake, talk on those autostrades that they have. They're just big straight highways over in Europe. You've been there yourself, some of those roads made by the Romans. Roman soldiers made them, they just walked. So and went to Venice and all those places I'd learned about at school and Rome. So I'd seen more of Europe than I'd seen of my own country at that time. After a year, I got a bit homesick, so I came back home. And I worked back in Sydney, the city, right in the city itself, in the suburbs. And I just still had itchy feet, so my parents had separated at this stage. Oh. Yeah, so...
was it while you were here or while you were
gone? No, but before I'd gone away, they'd separated. My father really, I think, was holding it together. I was the youngest, and he said...
Until you grew up?
I didn't know this till later, but he'd been just really playing the part as dad. And he said to my mother, when Chris is established, got work, I'll have to leave, because there was a lot of friction there. There was no love. My mother, at the age of 12, was in a big family in the Depression. Yeah. And my father told me sometime later that he found out, is that they gave my mother, I don't know how any mother could do this, I don't know how this could happen, gave her to the local butcher for food to feed the rest of the family. And of course, at the age of 12, she was probably doesn't even know what love is. Yeah. I'd never known my mother ever to embrace like a mother. She'd be like an auntie. Made sure you're fed and then made and clean, and did a great job. And I feel that she did a good job, but be like a distant person. But when I think of what she'd been through, and then she'd come home one day at the age of 13 and saw her father had hung himself. So
her father
had hung himself because she was the one that found him. So I can see she never talked about this, but just get back from my aunties and said, you know, if it wasn't for our sister, Linda, my mother, we would have starved. So it must be very, very hard in those days. I don't know how a mother could do that, but that was obviously the option. We'll never know. And I had a good nana, like my nana, my grandmother. But moving on, I've come back through this, and I still love Mum, you know, and I think in a way she did her best. Yeah. And I was able to tell her that too. You know, I was able to say, Mum, you know, you did your best. So I came back and moved down to the country, down to Jarvis Bay, where Dad had bought this place as a weekender. Now he's separated his living there. And he
was it a shack there now?
It was a shack. He was able to build a bit more and do a little bit more with it. Yep. Like I say, middle class, not rich, not poor. So we didn't go about it, we didn't have a lot. So he saved, and he was the sort of guy that wouldn't get into debt. If he didn't have the money, he would save up. So I remember him doing one room, and then we'd all sleeping, eating and drinking in one room, then he'd build another room. It's like, great, you know.
And then Mum, what did she do?
Well, Mum went worked in the hospital where they had a place where she could live in, work in and live in. She was happy to do that. So I'd come up occasionally and visit her, you know.
And she was still in town in Sydney?
She was up in Sydney. I was living down the South Coast. So I was still, as a motorcycle, was fixing motorcycles down there. But a period of time had gone by, and still into drugs, still, you know, dealing and playing around with drugs. There's more of a recreational side. There was times when it was, I sort of offered probably heavier drugs, but I didn't sort of bother too much. But again, still had the itchy feet. Yeah. Still wanted to travel. Yeah. And we said, let's head off over to Western Australia. We'll work our way. And we did that.
With a motorbike?
No, we were in a van. As a friend of mine, he was, I think he won an apprenticeship with the panel beater, so he took off and he wanted to see a bit of Australia. So we worked our way, picking fruit. Yeah. And when you stay at these places, it's like, there's your room, it's like there's the mattress, and you stay there in the morning. We're up at such a time in the back of the tractor, and we're off picking fruit. Yeah. Pictures like this, you don't see them in the shops. They're for canneries. They were going to the canneries, and you could eat as much as you like. But man, you get in there, hard work. You get paid a millions. But we worked our way to Western Australia. It was just an experience.
And did you work in Adelaide and Barossa Valley?
Yes, all through those areas, all for seasonal work.
Yeah, Mildura.
We'd find out, you know, and you just stay in wherever your accommodation, because he had a van. One of us would sleep in the van, and the other one probably in the tent, wherever, you know, whatever. Yeah. So it was like an old Escort van, I think it was.
What van?
It's an old Escort van.
Oh, it was a panel van.
Little panel van.
It wasn't a proper van.
Oh no, it's
just a tiny little van.
You'd have your feet sticking out the back if you were in the back of it. So anyway, it got us over there, and we worked. I worked with a fellow called Ted Stolarski, and he was Czechoslovakian, and he worked on all the bikes that He said, well, no one over here knows how to work on these bikes. I said, well, I did my apprenticeship.
Here in Perth?
So and the police had these. The police had these guys. He said, we got the police contract.
What Ducatis?
Motogazis.
Italian?
Yeah, Motogazzi they are. So I thought, okay, one of the police bikes, I thought, I haven't seen much of Perth. I'll get out the police bike and go for, just see the sights. And it needed a good run. So I thought, good. I just got a pair of shorts on, the t-shirts. I went out for a bit of get this thing for a run. I come back 2 hours later. Police come up and they walk up and they go, it's all right, boss, we got him. He said, we've had half of Perth police force looking for you, mate. He said, everybody thought there was a stolen motorcycle on our chasing from police. My boss laughed. He said, Chris, we're going to have to put a vest on you, mate, and say test riding advice. And they said, make sure you do. No charges.
Wow.
It was test riding, but don't do it again.
Yeah.
So he laughed at it. Tom and I was actually, the fellow had come over, he wanted to sort of head back, and so we went back. Had no brakes in the car. I don't know how we got back. I didn't have a brake. But I got back, and I had an old car back home. I gave to my dad for spares. So I got all this. I got my dad. I want the car back, so he's giving me the wheels and bits. Build
it up again.
It was a rust bucket thing, but we got it through, and I drove it back because I had other jobs that I could do some work, and I was working up in the country, working with the railways.
Oh.
Out in the country, I loved it.
Country, WA?
Wheat Belt, we went Geraldton Way, all out through the Wheat Belt, out through all the way to Kalgoorlie.
Mechanics?
Working as a plant operator, as a machine, you needed to know a bit of mechanical knowledge to fix these things. What they do is, as they put new sleepers in and they fix the track up, they need a machine probably like an iron. If you
Yeah.
were ironing it would run on infrared beam, so it would just sort of set the track up. The track would be all over the place when they work on it. It's a mess.
Nice.
It's like this brittle. This machine would just iron it, just fix the track up.
Awesome.
It'd be all day. Probably do about 2 or 3 kilometres an hour. But if you did 5 k's a day, you'd done good work, and it was a good experience.
When did you get married?
When did I get married? I met a lady in Perth. I must tell you too, my grandfather was a baker in Coolgardie, so the connection is Western Australia.
Western Australian, yeah.
Somewhere along the line he's gone back. Because when my father came over to visit, he said, I've got to go to Coolgardie and see when my dad worked in the bakery.
Nice.
Because it's all more historical sort of thing there. So there was Western Australia roots there to come back. And so I met a lady and we sort of were living together. Probably not the best thing, but we were living together. Time had gone on, I felt I wanted to go back east. And it was sad, but I just felt sad, so we split up. We just sort of went our separate ways and we went back. But after a period of time, we keep in contact.
Yeah.
And we just talked and connected. I said, if you want to come over for holiday, come over. See what it's like. I'm told I was living in this place near the beach. It's great, it's fantastic, because my father had remarried and he got another house anyway, and this place was it. Long story short, she came over and she loved it and we got married. And we thought that was fantastic. And in that time, my brother became a born-again Christian. I thought, are you kidding me? I thought it'd be the sort of guy the devil would run from. You're like, I'm going to hang on with you, you're evil. But anyway, it just shows you people that get saved. Anyone can get saved. And he's telling me all about God. And I'd actually been working at a paper mill at the time, doing some repairs. And another guy was Bible bashing me. I call him Bible basher, but it got in there and he gave me books and it was what's going on in the world today, stuff. Matthew 24 and all sorts of various things. And when we did get married, we were given the wife at the time, probably ex at the time, she had a lovely grandmother who was Swiss and gave us a gift of the Bible.
Nice.
But I always thought it was those things you put up on the
countertop.
Put it up there and you just clean it nicely. But I then did years with the army. I was in an infantry battalion.
Yeah.
And wanted to go in as engineers, but ended up going in infantry battalion, and I just absolutely loved it. I sort of was able to get up as corporal, lance corporal to corporal, and that was some good years there. And in that time, we had chaplains that would speak, and I used to love going to hear in the scriptures, be up in the bush and they'd set up a little altar or something like that, a little hoochie, and we just make our best to go and hear what's going on with this guy. We don't have to get out and do what we do. But one of the days we had an exercise, and you've probably seen it. You team over the wall and back down.
Yes.
Towards the end of the day, I'd slipped. I was pushing them too hard, and I did my foot in, and it swelled up like a rock melon. And I did the big mistake by taking the boot off, and I just couldn't get my boot back. So that laid me out. But while I was laid out with crutches, I thought, I'm going to read this Bible. And because I'd been brought up with Christianity, well, I should say religion.
Yeah.
But it never built a relationship. There was no real relationship. I knew the stories about David, and I knew about Goliath.
That's
all those basic sort of Sunday school stories, but there was no connection. But I just felt these scriptures jumping out of me because I've been searching.
Yes.
I've been delving in the I Chi, where you throw the coin, the I Chi, and doing different stuff with I Chi. I've been searching. It's almost like this try me. Try me. Not a big voice, but a sense of just read this. And I can tell you that the scriptures, I couldn't put the Bible down. We ended up going away on a holiday at Fiji, and I think I spent most of the time reading the Bible when we were going there. Came back. And that's where that was my burning bush. That's where God got my attention. And with my brother coming down sharing, he said, I know some pastors in town, go and visit them. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know, but they're having a pastors' prayer meetings. And these pastors from the country could come 50 k's to meet and have prayer time. Well, you can imagine you get a lot of full-on pastors praying, what sort of ground you're in. Because my brother knocks on the door and they silence and the door opens and he says, come on in. There's my brother, he's not saved. And came in there and we were just finishing the prayer meeting. We're just going to stop and have a coffee. So, and they got yakking because he knew the pastor from up. They made the connection there. And then one of the guys was saying, you know, you don't know the Lord, that's good. And he was being very polite and just asked, Pastor Shane Johns from memory. And I found that the atmosphere was immense.
Yes.
The presence of God, you've got to remember I wasn't born again then, but the presence of God. And the Spirit very gracious, they weren't forcing themselves on me. And I just happened to say, probably jovial looking back, do you have mass here at all? And they had a bit of a chuckle. They said, listen, we do have a church service here. So, okay, I went on my own. My wife at the time didn't really bother to come along. And I was just blown away that people could be there and they're just ready to go for a surf.
Yes.
Just go out the car, other people with their suits and farmers, you know, the diversity of people there. And I've never seen this before in one. And a lot of them were born again Salvation Army, so you had brass instruments, tambourine. The musicians then though sat on the front row facing.
Yeah.
Even the drummer was in the corner. Amazing, and this is like, the atmosphere was there, and I had to go to the next one this year. It was a 30k trip to go, but I look back, it was nothing because we were out in the country. But long story short, I got saved. And
your wife?
Saved and baptised, and she did too. She
wow.
Baptized, she did, yeah, she came. And we went along, and then within, we'd been married probably 2 years, and then we had our first child, and life was good. God's in heaven smiling down. Couldn't be in a better place. Everything's good. And I managed to just be able to be, in those days, just play a bit of guitar and stuff like that. Pastor there was a bit like yourself, really a real shepherd for people, a loving, caring man who knew the word and was solid rock, a true shepherd, I suppose, or a pastor who should be. And we were just finishing something in the house, and it had to be finished. And the last thing we need to do is just put this painting up. We've done the room up, we've done it all very well. He said, don't wake the baby. It was about 3 months old by this time. I managed to get it in. And I just went to the shower, I came out, and my wife come back, and the baby had died.
In the sleep?
It died.
Caught
death, what they call sudden infant death syndrome. Horror. No, so we got ambulance, just in case it was revived. And they gave us the news, and they just took us in the hospital. Probably wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. Yeah. Anybody who's been through that. And then they had to bring us in. We believe that God could raise the dead. We were that sort of people. Yeah. This is going to be a big, God will use this, I'm sure he will. Yeah. It's horrifying as it is, and my pastor was preaching in another place about 80 k's. He got straight down there and got a prayer team going. Yes. It wasn't meant to be, it wasn't God's plan to work that way. His name was Joshua Aram. Nice name. But in his short life, he certainly knocked the walls down out of my life and it changed. I don't know why today that happens. Even to God's people, things can happen. Yeah. But some years later, God told me, I lost a son too, Chris. I lost a son. I know how you felt. But he's up here with me, Chris, and you've got to get on with your life. Yeah. I'm building a new foundation. It's the only time I've ever heard an audible voice. It's like the house of shaking, building a new foundation. We went on to, I fell pregnant again after 18 months, and we thought, come back to Western Australia. She was a WA girl. Oh. We came back and we had a lovely girl. We had 4 lovely girls. 4 girls? 4 girls. They were great. You wouldn't change them for anything. Because everything's all going very, very well for the night. All I remember is having babies in the 90s. We had, there's 4 girls growing up. We did have twins in there, but at an early stage we lost them. They were connected by the head, and one died. It was sad, we lost those, but they were about, I think, 16 weeks or something like that we lost them. That was terrible, but God brought us through that time. And we just moved on. I think from the army days I've learned to just push through that. You've got to go, hand it back to God. And it seemed from the outside we were going through a lot of hard times. And to my ex's family then, who were doing very, very well, and they're not Christian, said, why is all this happening to you, Yeah. And there was a bad influence who was coming in there. Because all the kids were growing up, they never went to daycare. They were all brought up by their mother. She's a great mother and a great cook, great. but something bad, but storm clouds were on the horizon, I couldn't see it. Things were happening when she started work, the ex started work, got a job with a large accountancy firm. She loved getting back into work. She wasn't coming to church, wasn't reading the Bible. There was other areas. The world crept in. And as much as I tried for 3 years to say, this is not good, basically said, well, I'm tired of God. And I said, well, you must be tired of me. And that broke me, that smashed me. To the point where she said, why don't we separate for a while? I thought, maybe at the time, I didn't want to. But we come to arrangement, a friend of mine had said, oh, I've got a place here, spare every state. But it never got back, and time had gone on. I thought, well, what's going on? I was able to have the 2 younger girls, the other ones were a little bit older in their teenage years, and they were more sort of hanging around with their age. That's what girls do, they love Dad. There's a point where they'll be more like their mum and hang with them as much as they come out and see me. But the younger ones just ran out. I had them, fortunately I had them most weekends where I can, unless they had something. And they would run out, and I look forward to those times. I hated the time where I was living in caravans, but when I look back over the years, God was dealing even more with me in those areas. And look forward to the weekends. We had a good friend of mine, we were in a motorcycle group, Christian Outreach, but it was going the wrong way. We wanted to get out and outreach and evangelise a lot more. So we started this group called the Band of Brothers Christian Riders.
Nice.
So we had Harleys, we would just bash around our Harleys, and we thought, well, they were once our toys, now they're our tools. And we come up with saying, through our spokes, God speaks.
Yeah, through our spokes, God speaks.
God speaks, and one of the other founding members, he'd been through a similar thing that I'd been through, so we were able to encourage each other. And we came through that time, this, that, and the other. They were dark years. But God held on to me. Sometimes, I could quote scripture, but sometimes I couldn't, and all I could find was, I'll nor leave you nor forsake me.
Enough to give you
there? I know the word, but the scriptures never came, but that one was enough to put the well in and
keep it watering.
Continuing to praying always that this marriage would come back. So separated sometimes over divorce. I didn't want to. It's not on my behalf, but it was obvious that when you turn your back on God, it's a terrible thing. Because you then move away, then you go into other things. Oh, I've got the job now, I've got the money, I can do what I like. You've got to remember that we owned a house when we were together. The kids went without nothing, and I was dedicated. I was a typical family man. I've done everything in my life. I just wanted to be the father. And it was, and the enemy had come in and crept in and came in. And it could quite easily do. I didn't see it coming. I tried my best over 3 years, and it was evident. I ended up going along to Angus Buchan came over.
Oh yeah,
it was a small
Faith Local Daily.
Yeah, it was a small group about 300 guys.
I was there.
By that afternoon, there was something like 9. I said, you better get down to this guy's man. And it spoke to me about re-establishing. So I went, the times I could go back to the wife and see the kids, I said, you know what, I just want to apologise if I've not been the best man. Because there are probably areas that you can always do better. And I just felt where it spoke to me, and I said, I really want to give this a go. You've got to give us a go on this one. Even if we're not in the same room, but I want to give us a go for the sake of the children. Give it a go. And she could see the plight in me, but she didn't agree with that. So obviously it had been cemented in her that she didn't follow. If you leave the Lord, it's true, another spirit goes away and comes back worse. Of course, then you move from materialism into, in her case, anybody out there starts searching, it's going into occultic witchcraft areas, which is very, very dangerous. I wouldn't say a person couldn't get saved out of that, but it must be very, very difficult. But for a long, long time, when the kids got a little bit older, they were not coming out with Dad so much. We were older, we want to get out with our teenage friends and do all the things that teenage girls do. So they'd text me and, this, that and the other. But she was, the spirit was saying, I don't really want you. I earlier the saying, I don't want you to come to know Jesus. That spirit was very strong. There was a lot of Masonic lodge and witchcraft over that family that I married into. But you know, time had gone on, and appreciate the strong friends that are around me, and I had good pastoral care that would just get alongside you and how you going, be out there, meet you for lunch, and just listen, just being a listening sounding board, so to speak. And it got me through, you know, basically got me through, and it's in the caravan park, and then I get a South African friend of mine who's rides motorcycles down to Bunbury. He said, I've got this sister that's desperate, she needs to get a place to stay. Can you help us in the caravan park? I said, there's not much here, but I've got a friend around the corner, he's got a few spare, he has a few students, and he can help out with the rent there. And we made arrangements and for this lady to come up, and we met, and I sort of at a certain time, and somehow might have got her signals crossed, but she came a bit earlier. Yeah. It was almost knocking on the door, but she came down with a few friends that she had and introduced myself and made tea and coffee, and it was only walking distance to where this house was. But little did I know that this woman had her eye on me. I wasn't really prepared to get married, and what I'd been through, I didn't want to go through that. I couldn't do that, and I thought, well, Lord, you know, and I often pray that if you give me somebody, they've got to love you, love me, and we've got to love each other. It's got to be love, solid love, through it. And this wife is Jen, this lady's Jen, who becomes my wife sometime later. Probably 18 months that we'd been together, and the Lord had sort of told me that he had something, and I thought, is that right? You know, no, it was not. But the friendship grew. It was not, Jen said, oh, you're going to, she knew straight away, but I was a bit, we can be a bit clueless sometimes, so we're sort of just trying to do our best. But we managed to get her into her own caravan because a lady had moved and said we want another lady to come in there. So she was a little bit up from me, and it was just great because we go and have tea and coffee and talk. And it was purely platonic all the time, just good friends, and that's why I wanted it. That was good. Yeah. So it's not complicated. But she was hungry for the Lord and more things, because when we first met, I felt the Lord saying, invite her to church. Lord, you invite them for coffee, you invite them for a meal. I mean, don't not invite her to church, I'm not saying that. Not immediately. When you want to meet, you know, there's going to be a lady, wouldn't be invited for coffee and invite her for a meal, but invite her to church. And which church is it? Anyway, the next stuff went up. What you must think of it. The next day I'm getting ready to go to church, you know, you just knock on the door with this Afrikaans, say, hello, is anybody home? You know, this Afrikaans accent. And she wants to go to church, she wants to go. Wow. Take her up to church, and then we went for lunch. And we just talked and talked and talked and talked about the Lord, met people around us. And that relationship grew and grew until we got married. Yeah. And God had done that healing in me, because it came at a time where my daughters were at least established and now they're working. Yeah. As much as I missed them, God knew that if Jen was to come in earlier, the girls, you couldn't spread yourself out that much, and I'd probably gravitate for looking after my daughters. But God's timing is perfect. Yeah. And she'd been a broken vessel too, and we were able to encourage each other, basically. Wow. And then she grew more and more with you in the Lord? She did. So you got married about 18 months later? We got married 18 months. We talked about this is really what you want to do. You know? Yeah. We kept ourselves, that was what God never said, that's what we do. And we've loved every day. It's not saying it's been easy, it's been as you do. Well, you're both healing, aren't you? Both healing. Yeah. So, and she rides motorcycles, and so do you. And so she's hands-on. She can fix it for you, or you can fix it for her. Oh, no. I mean, she can drive a truck and back. It's amazing that she can back. You've seen her Woolworths back these semi-trailers with the tyres there, and get them in there. She can drive, but she can't back a little bike out of the garage. They don't have a reverse, the bikes. Not the bikes we have. No, the reverses. Are there bikes that have reverse? There are. The big ones. Harley Davidson had them for sidecars, and of course they get into be used for commercial use. A lot of them were commercial, and they would have reverse gear. There you go. Very big. Some of the big Hondas have got it, but because they get into an area where they're a bit stuck into a corner, they can get those things out. Yeah, interesting. But so life is a journey. It just shows you that many of the scars that we get through life for different situations, it proves that God is our healer.
Yeah.
We've got the scars to prove that, and that shows that He's a healer. It's an amazing thing with God that He can cut through to get stuff out as a surgeon, but He's also doing that healing work. And if He has to do that, it's not easy.
But it heals, and it's better after. Post-op.
Exactly, yeah, post-op. Good way of putting it.
And we're so thrilled that you made it to our church as well, because I didn't say this last week when we interviewed Jen, but I remember when you guys first came to our church, we were showing a movie, a documentary, 3 Burma Rangers. And the first thing that Jen did was go and help in the kitchen, and she helped wash the dishes on that night. And it was, I noticed that, and I was quite touched. I thought, man, these guys are really, really beautiful. I mean, they come into a church for the first time and they serve. I thought, what a heart, These are the sort of people you want to have in your church. Little did I know that God actually, that was the beginning of this journey where we are together now. And I mean, it's not long ago that you came, but it's just so beautiful since I got to know you and Jen. I think, I'm humbled by your love, your service, the way you love the Lord, and the way you serve, the way you love each other, and how you just blossom here with us. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. How do you see yourself in the next 20 years and the legacy that will remain behind you?
20 years. I just say we love being here too, by the way. We love being
Thank
here.
you.
The church we came out of was great.
Yeah.
We prayed about it and they released us.
Wonderful.
But we feel we must be here. This is where God wants us. So, yeah, we just love everybody that's here. So, yeah, as I see myself,
you're going to get me into Harley, aren't you?
I think we can get you on a bike, yeah. I think we can triumph in that.
Don't tell my wife, please. I hope she doesn't listen to this.
No one will ever know.
Is there a silencer that I can put when I get down my road?
I think we can do something.
Switch it off and just push it down the road.
We can get you out. So getting back to that ministry too, yeah. Well, in 20 years, I mean, when we get out there, we're seeing it's a subculture. Motorcycling is like surfing. Yeah. There's a subculture, and as they are in a lot of venues, and there's a language that's in there. So I was, even though I've been brought up, that was my trade. I've done various different jobs to get around, but I've always come back. That's my tent making, as Paul would say. You do other ministry. So it's itinerant with the Band of Brothers motorcycling, but it's not just men. It's Band of Brothers / sisters, because we have a few of the ladies that come along with their husbands. Look, I think we see ourselves as, again, Jen and I get out. We have a Wednesday night, we get out and feed people that are on the streets with a team. Yeah. We've got a lovely team, and they said, you guys can't go. You've got to stay. We said, we wouldn't want to go. We love being here. So we're up there, and they're feeding them every night. And we volunteered for other nights. I said, no, we've got enough people for those, but this is not. But I see myself, I think to encourage and get alongside people. Nice. And to evangelise. Got a real burden for evangelising. Love worshipping. There's a lovely worship team here, and the people are very musical themselves. Yeah. Some churches you have to almost sort of put 240 volts in the seats to get them up to worship, but people are ready to go here. Yeah. And there's a lot of churches like that, but this is here. So I see myself, I sort of want to go push more into that area. Yeah. And pastoral care, I think that's something that's, Christians are also warriors, fighter. From the military, so you get that fighting spirit. But we're also, what would you call it? Stretcher bearers, really. Yes, we've got to carry. We've got to carry the broken and the wounded. We don't shoot them. That's nothing. You don't shoot the wounded, because we might be wounded one day. Yeah. But it's the fact that you've been broken, Jen has been broken and mended, both of you. I think you have that caring heart for the broken, because you know what it means to be broken. And that's when you see these people on Wednesday nights and others who come here on a Sunday, your heart is there for them. It's true, but I must say this and be honest. At first, I was very hard to look at these people's lives, because they haven't washed in many cases as volunteers. They're off their face, or they've got demons in them. They know they're sinners, they know they're lost, but Jesus has done a heart in me to see these They're lovely people.
Yeah. You see
your
beyond
eyes
that
on
now.
Jesus, you see Jesus. And then
Because your heart is His
but
heart.
the other thing is they see that
They
it's
sense
Jesus' eyes. So they're changing, there's things happening, and many we've been able to give them the Gospels of Mark. And we want to give them the greatest gift too. They've got that little booklet, so
Yeah.
we've been able to handle a couple of those out. Holy Spirit will let you know who they are. Some of them will throw them, others are hungry for them. So God's on the move everywhere. It's the matter of being positioned. So out of a bad situation, God can use it. Now, I think of that amazing scripture, although we use it as a cliche, that God uses all things for the good.
Wow.
Those who love Him.
And He does.
He does.
Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story here. And I'm enthused by the journey God has gotten you on. And I can't wait to see how this will pan out in the future as well.
I'm sure it's good.
Well, what a beautiful story once again here at Kingdom Stories from Down Under, a true blue Australian who married a South African and together are serving and loving God immensely. What a beautiful, beautiful life. And now he's caring for the broken. And I think this propels us to also look around and see what ministry God is calling us to do. And see those people through the eyes of Jesus, not through our carnal eyes, and not through the eyes of the world, but to see the potential, because they are God's creation and they are God's children as well. They just don't know it yet, but we can help them understand that. So thank you so much for joining us here at Kingdom Stories, and we'd love it if you can share this content with other people, so these beautiful stories can be, touching lives further and further out there in the virtual world as well. If you love this content, do share it. Give us some 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and on Google and all the other platforms that you listen to these podcasts. And come again and join us every week here at Kingdom Stories from Down Under. My name is Natanael Costea.
Thank you for joining us on Kingdom Stories from Down Under. We'd love it if you would subscribe, rate, and share these stories with your wider community. And remember, every story is worth sharing, including yours.